Tell me, how can a soul so awake, so wise, so deeply touched by truth, still tremble when the bills arrive at the door? How can hands that pray with such grace still shake when it comes to holding money? There is a truth here that most dare not whisper, but tonight we will speak it loud. You see, awakening does not immediately dress you in gold, nor does it pour treasures into your pockets. Awakening strips you. It takes away the false safety nets, the borrowed identities, the desperate chase for approval. It demands you to stand bare, honest, and raw before life itself. And in that rawness, many find themselves struggling, not because they are weak, not because they lack talent, but because the old ways of chasing money no longer fit their awakened spirit. That is why so many awakened souls sit in quiet rooms, wrestling with the same question: why am I still struggling financially if I now see life so clearly? Stay with me, for by the end of this speech, you will understand why the struggle is not a punishment, but a passage, and you will see how to step beyond it. There comes a moment after awakening when the very ground beneath your feet feels unfamiliar. The world you once ran in with so much urgency begins to look like a stage of actors, all chasing the same applause, all dancing to music that no longer stirs your spirit. And though your eyes have opened to a deeper truth, the weight of financial struggle presses down heavier than before. You begin to wonder, why is this happening to me now that I finally see? The answer lies in the breaking of the old illusions of success. Before awakening, success was painted in bold colors, easy to recognize but shallow in its depth. It was the car in the driveway, the clothes with labels, the house bigger than your neighbor's. It was the paycheck that allowed you to say, "I am safe." It was the applause of people when you introduced yourself with a title. It was the approval of the system that gave you rewards for obedience. And so you chased it. We all did. Like moths chasing a flame, believing light meant life. But awakening tears down those posters of false dreams. It strips you bare, leaving you unable to lie to yourself anymore. You can no longer convince yourself that working a job you hate in exchange for money that numbs your soul is a form of success. You can no longer sell your time, your energy, your integrity to a system that does not honor the deepest parts of you. You can no longer swallow the lie that endless consumption will quiet the restless hunger in your spirit. That is the first breaking, the realization that what you once called success was never success at all. And when that illusion shatters, the foundation you stood on collapses. The path you once walked on disappears, and suddenly you find yourself in an in-between space. You can't go back because your spirit won't allow you to return to sleepwalking, yet you don't quite know how to go forward because the new path is foggy, uncertain, unpaved, and in that fog, financial struggle shows up like an uninvited guest. You see, the old illusions gave you certainty, though it was hollow. The paycheck, the steady climb, the predictable ladder, it was an illusion of stability. When awakening pulls you out of that illusion, you stand for a time without safety nets. You are suspended between worlds, the world of conditioned ambition and the world of soulful integrity. And the struggle comes because for a while, you are asked to live with empty hands so you can learn to build a different relationship with wealth. That empty-handedness is not a punishment. It is a cleansing. For too long, money had been a master that whispered lies into your ear. You are only as valuable as your income. You are only as free as your salary allows. You are only as respected as your possessions show. And without even knowing it, you bowed to that master. Awakening removes the crown from its head. But in doing so, it takes away the comfort of having a ruler to follow. Suddenly you are free, but freedom feels frightening when your pockets are light. The illusion of success also taught you comparison. It trained your eyes to look outward instead of inward. You were told to measure yourself against neighbors, colleagues, friends, and strangers. Their wealth became your mirror. Their gains became your losses. Their applause became your hunger. And in the game of comparison, you always came up short, for the system is designed to keep you reaching without arriving. Awakening smashes that mirror. It forces you to ask, who am I without comparing? What is my worth if I measure only with the yardstick of my soul? But as you stand asking those questions, the bank account does not wait patiently. It still demands answers in numbers, not in wisdom. That tension is why the struggle feels unbearable. The old illusion also equated productivity with worthiness. You were taught to grind, to exhaust, to sacrifice joy in the name of achievement. To rest was to be lazy. To say no was to risk losing everything. And so you pushed and hustled, believing that the universe only rewarded those who bled for their bread. Awakening exposes that lie, but the body, trained for years in that rhythm, resists. You find yourself unable to force your way through meaningless work anymore, but you have not yet learned how to flow with meaningful work. In that gap, income falters. The breaking of illusions is always costly. When you stop bowing to false gods, you lose the privileges they once gave you. The system rewards compliance. It punishes rebellion. Awakening is rebellion, and so the struggle is part of your initiation. It is not that you are unworthy of wealth. It is that you are being untied from false definitions of it. Wealth must no longer mean chains, exhaustion, or dependence on a system that does not honor your soul. It must mean freedom, alignment, and dignity. But until you learn that, the breaking will feel like loss. So many awakened ones look around in despair. They see friends who are still asleep but financially stable. They see relatives who never questioned the system yet walk with more comfort. And in the silence of the night they ask, why am I the one who sees deeper but struggles harder? The answer is this: you are not struggling because you see deeper. You are struggling because you can no longer play small. The old game is closed to you now, and the new one is not yet fully revealed. You are between illusions and truth, and that space is always narrow, always pressing, always testing. The reason financial struggle feels so sharp after awakening is because money is tied to survival, and survival touches our most primal fears. When the illusions break, they don't just break in your mind, they break in your very body. Your nervous system, trained to seek safety through money, trembles when that safety disappears. But the trembling is part of the healing. The breaking of illusions must be felt, not just understood. You must live through the shaking so that the next time money enters your life, it will not own you, it will serve you. And though the struggle feels endless, it is the sign of transformation. Just as a snake sheds its old skin, just as a seed cracks open in the dark soil before sprouting, you are being remade. The breaking of the illusion of success is painful because it leaves you bare. But in that bareness, you will find a truer wealth. You will discover that your worth was never tied to possessions, never tied to applause, never tied to the illusions the world forced upon you. Your worth is intrinsic, unshakable, eternal. And when that truth anchors deep within, money will no longer be a symbol of survival. It will be a tool in the hands of your awakened spirit. When you awaken, you begin to see what you could not see before. You begin to recognize that much of the world is not designed for freedom, but for control. It is not built to raise sovereign souls, but to train compliant servants. The system rewards those who bow their heads, follow the script, and never ask questions. It tells you where to go, when to sit, how to speak, and even what to dream. And when you awaken, when your eyes crack open, you suddenly realize you no longer belong in that machinery. You no longer fit into a system that was never meant to honor the fullness of your being. And that dissonance is one of the deepest reasons you find yourself financially struggling. Before awakening, you could squeeze yourself into the mold. You might not have liked it, but you played along. You went to the job you hated, collected the paycheck, put on the smile for supervisors who did not care for your soul. You told yourself, this is what everyone does, this is the way. You silenced your spirit and convinced yourself survival was enough. But when awakening comes, survival no longer satisfies. A new hunger rises, a hunger for freedom, authenticity, and alignment. Suddenly, the very places you once tolerated feel unbearable. Your body resists the desk. Your spirit resists the script. Your heart resists the performance. The system is clever. It tells you that if you obey, you will be rewarded with comfort, stability, and even status. But the cost is your soul. And once you have seen truth, you cannot pay that price anymore. You cannot sell your freedom for a salary. You cannot shrink your essence to fit a cubicle. You cannot ignore your purpose just to climb a ladder that leads nowhere. And so you begin to slip out of the system, but as you do, the system withdraws its rewards. You no longer receive the steady paycheck. You no longer fit neatly into the job description. You no longer chase the approval of bosses and managers. And as those rewards vanish, you find yourself in the storm of financial uncertainty. This is the price of no longer fitting in. The system never wanted your sovereignty. It wanted your labor. It wanted your compliance. It wanted your silence. And when you refuse to give those, it gives you struggle in return. But do not mistake this for failure. This is the birthing ground of freedom. You are not financially struggling because you are lazy or unworthy. You are struggling because you are breaking the chains that once kept you tame. Think about how society is structured from the very beginning. Children are trained to sit still in classrooms for hours, rewarded not for curiosity, but for obedience. They are measured not by their unique brilliance, but by their ability to memorize and repeat. They are taught to follow bells, schedules, and systems that prepare them not for freedom, but for factories and offices. It is a quiet conditioning, shaping minds to serve the machine. And for many years, you did not question it. You followed the same steps, believing this was the only way. But awakening disrupts that programming. You begin to see that you were not born to be a cog in someone else's wheel. You were born to create, to lead, to express the truth of your soul. And when you refuse to play small, the system does not know what to do with you. You no longer line up neatly in its categories. You no longer respond to its carrots and sticks. You become unpredictable, uncontrollable, uncontainable. That is the beauty of sovereignty. But that beauty, in the beginning, feels like exile. You are cast out of the system's comfort, and for a time, you walk in the wilderness. The wilderness of financial struggle after awakening is not an accident. It is a test. It is a crucible. It asks, do you really want freedom, or do you just want a softer cage? Many will try to run back into the cage when the wilderness gets hard. They will trade freedom for security, authenticity for approval. But those who endure will discover a power the system cannot offer, the power to create wealth that is not bought with their soul. This struggle also reveals how deeply conditioned we have been. You might say, I want to live free, but inside, you still crave the false safety of a paycheck. You still crave the validation of a title. You still crave the structure of someone telling you what to do. Awakening strips those cravings bare. It forces you to stand without them, to learn how to hold yourself, to learn how to lead yourself. Only then can you build wealth as a sovereign, not as a slave. Yes, the system punishes those who step away. But look closer. Its rewards were never real. That paycheck you thought kept you safe could vanish with a single layoff. That health plan you relied on could be stripped in an instant. That pension you trusted could dissolve before you ever touched it. The system never gave you security. It gave you dependency. Awakening shows you that. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You know the only true security comes from your own alignment, your own gifts, your own ability to create. And so the financial struggle after awakening is the gap between the old dependency and the new sovereignty. You are no longer willing to sell yourself for comfort, but you have not yet built the structures of freedom. In that gap, your bank account trembles. In that gap, you question yourself. In that gap, you sometimes feel lost. But understand this, every sovereign soul walks through this valley. It is not a punishment, it is a passage. When you no longer fit into the system, you must build a new one, your own. A system where your gifts, your service, your truth become the foundation of your income. A system where wealth flows, not because you are obedient, but because you are authentic. That building takes time. It takes courage. It takes the endurance to walk through uncertainty without running back to chains. But when the building is complete, you will understand why the struggle was necessary. For in that struggle, you prove to yourself that freedom matters more than false stability. When awakening comes, it does not just strip away illusions, it plants something new inside you. That seed is called purpose. It is the quiet knowing that your life is not random, that your existence has weight, that your gifts are not accidents but assignments. For the first time, you begin to sense that your work on this earth must matter. Not just to pay the bills, not just to pass the time, but to serve, to heal, to uplift, to create. That realization is powerful, but it does not pay immediately. And this is one of the greatest shocks of awakening. You find your purpose, yet your pockets still feel empty. We are conditioned to believe that once you discover your calling, everything will flow easily, that the universe will instantly reward you for stepping into alignment, that somehow money will rain down the moment you whisper, "I have found my purpose." But this is not how it unfolds. A seed, even the most powerful seed, does not bear fruit the moment it is planted. It first must break, must push roots down into dark soil, must withstand storms before it can rise tall. Purpose works the same way. It takes time to build pathways for provision. The struggle happens because you are used to the instant transactions of the old system. Work an hour, get paid an hour. Sacrifice your spirit, collect your check. But purpose refuses to operate in that cycle. Purpose asks you to build something larger than a transaction. It asks you to create value that ripples beyond yourself. It asks you to anchor your work in truth, not desperation. And because of that, it takes longer. The reward is greater, but the waiting is longer. When you begin walking in purpose, the first steps feel exhilarating. You feel alive in a way you never did before. But soon reality knocks on the door. The bills still come. The responsibilities do not pause. And yet your new work does not yet support you. That in-between space is where many awakened souls begin to doubt themselves. They wonder, if this is really my purpose, why am I struggling? Shouldn't it be easier? No, beloved, purpose does not eliminate struggle, it transforms it. The struggle becomes less about chasing survival and more about trusting the process. Provision is not withheld because you are unworthy. It is delayed because the pathways are not yet built. Think of a river. Before water can flow, the channel must be carved. The earth must be shaped to hold the current. Purpose does the same with your life. It begins carving new channels through which provision will flow. It clears out old blockages of fear, scarcity, and self-doubt. It reshapes your habits, your thoughts, your relationships. And only when those channels are ready can the current of abundance run freely. The waiting is not wasted, it is building you. During this time, you are learning discipline, patience, and resilience. You are learning to serve without expectation, to show up even when applause is absent, to continue planting seeds when the soil looks barren. Each moment of apparent lack is actually forming the roots of your future abundance. For without roots, any tree that bears fruit will collapse under the weight of it. This is why so many who achieve sudden success lose it quickly. The roots were never built. Purpose protects you from that collapse by demanding that you grow deep before you grow tall. Another reason purpose takes time to provide is because it must align not just with your desire, but with the needs of others. Purpose is not self-indulgence, it is service. And service requires connection. The people who will be touched by your work may not yet be ready. Their lives may need to shift before they can cross paths with your gift. The timing is bigger than you. The delay is not denial. It is orchestration. The universe is arranging encounters, weaving threads, preparing hearts to receive what you are becoming. It is easy in this space to feel like you have been abandoned, but look closer and you will see signs. A small opportunity here, a word of encouragement there, an unexpected resource arriving just in time. These are whispers of provision, reminders that though the full river has not yet broken through, the ground is wetting with promise. Do not despise these small beginnings. They are proof that your seed is alive. There is also the work of unlearning. You must unlearn the belief that your worth is tied to how quickly you can generate money. You must unlearn the urge to measure your success by numbers alone. You must unlearn the fear that tells you you are running out of time. Purpose is not a sprint. It is a lifelong unfolding. And when you measure yourself by the pace of the old system, you dishonor the rhythm of your soul. Trust that your purpose knows its own timing. Trust that what is delayed is not denied. Yes, there will be nights when the weight of it all feels too heavy, when you question why you left the false comfort of the system for this uncertainty, when you wonder if you misunderstood your calling. In those moments, remember, the seed buried in the soil does not see the sunlight either, yet it pushes on. It does not give up because the sky is hidden. It knows that its season will come, and so must you. The truth is, when your purpose begins to provide, it will do so in ways you cannot imagine. It will not just give you money, it will give you freedom. It will not just sustain you, it will expand you. It will not just pay your bills, it will allow you to bless others. But that kind of provision requires the maturity of spirit that only comes from waiting. Without the waiting, you might misuse it. Without the waiting, you might mistake the gift for the source. Without the waiting, you might forget who carried you when the river had not yet arrived. So yes, purpose takes time to build pathways for provision. But those pathways, once formed, are unshakable. They are not dependent on bosses, markets, or systems. They are sustained by the alignment of your spirit with the needs of the world. And that kind of provision does not dry up with layoffs or recessions. It flows as long as you remain faithful to your calling. Even after awakening, even after your spirit has risen to new levels of clarity, there are whispers that do not leave so easily. They are old voices, woven deep into your nervous system, planted in your childhood, repeated by the culture, reinforced by the system. They say, there is not enough. You must fight for your share. You must hold on tightly or it will be taken from you. These whispers of scarcity are quiet but powerful, and they are one of the reasons so many awakened souls still find themselves struggling financially. Awakening clears the mind, but it does not erase years of conditioning in a single breath. You can see truth with your eyes, but your body still trembles with old fears. You may know that the universe is abundant, but when the rent is due, that knowing feels fragile. You may trust that you are supported, but when your bank account shows little, doubt slips in. The whispers of scarcity sit in the corners of your mind, and though you try to silence them, they creep back like shadows at dusk. Think of where these fears come from. Many of us were raised hearing phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, we can't afford that, or you'd better save because one day it'll all run out. We saw our parents worry over bills, argue over expenses, or sacrifice their dreams in the name of security. Those memories sink into us, shaping our understanding of what is possible. Then we step into a society built on competition, where advertisements scream, "You need more, you don't have enough," where jobs pit one worker against another for raises, where systems thrive by keeping you in fear of loss. All of this writes a story in your subconscious. There is never enough, and you must always chase. Awakening reveals the lie, but the lie does not die quietly. It lingers in your body. You may leave the system, you may follow your purpose, but inside, a small voice still says, what if it doesn't work out? What if you fail? What if you run out? And so even when abundance tries to enter your life, those fears choke the flow. They cause you to hesitate, to doubt, to sabotage opportunities before they can bloom. Scarcity shows up in many subtle ways. It shows up when you underprice your gifts because you fear people won't pay more. It shows up when you cling to a job you hate because you're terrified of the unknown. It shows up when you overwork, exhausting your body because rest feels like a luxury you can't afford. It shows up when you say yes to things that drain you simply because you're afraid of losing what little you have. This is how scarcity keeps you enslaved, not just in your finances, but in your mind. The truth is, money is not the real prison. Fear is. You could place a sovereign soul in the lowest conditions, and if they are free from fear, they will rise. But place a fearful soul in the richest palace, and they will still live as if they are poor. Scarcity is not about numbers in a bank account. It is about belief in the heart. Until those beliefs are healed, struggle remains, even after awakening. This is why so many awakened ones find themselves confused. They know abundance is real. They believe life supports them. They repeat affirmations. They meditate on prosperity. They speak faith over their lives. Yet deep inside, the nervous system is still wired to fear collapse. The child inside them still remembers lack. The body still reacts to money with anxiety. Awakening must reach those places too. It is not enough to see truth. You must embody it, and embodiment takes time. Consider how deeply these patterns run. A person may feel guilty for charging what their work is worth, as though asking for abundance is selfish. They may sabotage their own progress, procrastinate on opportunities, or give away their time without boundaries. They may hoard money, terrified of spending, or spend recklessly as if money burns their hands. These extremes all come from the same root, scarcity whispering lies in the background. And until you face that whisper, you will continue to live beneath your true potential. The healing of scarcity is not intellectual, it is experiential. You must practice trust. You must walk into situations where fear says you won't be okay and discover that you are. You must take risks guided by intuition, not desperation, and see provision arrive in unexpected ways. Each experience rewires the nervous system, teaching the body what the spirit already knows. There is enough. There has always been enough, and you are not forgotten. The whispers will not vanish overnight. Some days they will return louder than ever. You may feel panic, doubt, or shame, but each time you choose trust over fear, each time you refuse to bow to the old voice, it weakens. Scarcity loses its grip, not because you fight it, but because you outgrow it. Like an old garment, it no longer fits. And as you outgrow it, something shifts. You begin to see money not as a master, not as a source of fear, but as energy. You realize it flows like water, sometimes rushing, sometimes still, but always moving. You stop clinging to it with desperation because you know it is not limited. You stop fearing it will leave because you know it always returns. You stop defining yourself by it because you know your worth is beyond numbers. That shift is liberation. Until then, the struggle feels real because those whispers feel real. They echo in your decisions, shape your behaviors, and slow your progress. But never mistake the whisper for the truth. It is only a shadow of an old story, and shadows cannot survive the light. Each day you choose trust. Each day you affirm abundance. Each day you act with courage. The light grows stronger. One day you will realize the whispers have gone silent, and in that silence, abundance will flow without resistance. There comes a moment in every awakened life when compromise becomes unbearable. Before awakening, you could silence that little voice inside you. You could do the job that drained you, speak the words you did not mean, shake hands with people whose intentions you did not trust, and convince yourself it was necessary. You told yourself, everyone does it. This is the way the world works. And for a while, the system rewarded you for your silence. The money came even if your spirit shrank. The approval was given even if your heart was restless. But once you awaken, compromise becomes poison. You cannot drink it anymore without feeling sick. You cannot betray yourself without hearing the echo of your own soul calling you back. And so integrity rises as your only path. But here is the truth most people will not admit. Integrity costs more in the beginning. It asks you to walk away from the easy money, the quick deals, the shortcuts. It asks you to say no when yes would bring comfort. It asks you to hold your head high when bending low could have bought you favor. Integrity is expensive in a world that thrives on compromise. And when you first commit to it, you will feel the cost. The bank account may thin, the opportunities may shrink, the invitations may stop. You will be tested again and again with the question, will you betray yourself for survival? Or will you hold your soul even if your pockets tremble? This is why so many awakened souls struggle financially. They no longer have the ability to compromise. They cannot perform roles that betray their truth. They cannot promote lies for the sake of profit. They cannot stay silent when their voice is called to speak. The system looks at them and says, "You are difficult, you don't fit here," and it withholds its rewards. But what looks like loss is actually preservation. Every dollar you lose by refusing to compromise is a chain you avoid placing around your neck. Integrity demands patience. Compromise pays quickly. If you are willing to betray yourself, the system will throw you crumbs immediately. If you refuse, the system will turn its back for a time. That is when the struggle feels sharp. You see others, those who still bow to compromise, receiving more than you. They smile, they prosper, they move forward in the eyes of the world, and you, standing in integrity, feel like the foolish one. You ask, why must truth cost so much? But remember, their comfort is bought with silence, their abundance with chains. You may walk slower, but you walk free. The cost of integrity is not just external, it is internal. It asks you to face your fears, to stand in uncertainty, to trust that something greater will come. Compromise lulls you into a false sense of safety, whispering, at least you know where your next check will come from. But integrity whispers differently. It says, hold steady. What is yours cannot be taken. What is true will not abandon you. That voice is harder to trust when the bills are due, when the world demands evidence. But if you stay with it, if you endure, you will see that integrity always pays back, not in coins of fear, but in the currency of freedom. Freedom is priceless. When you wake up each morning, knowing you do not have to betray yourself to eat, when you can look in the mirror and see honesty staring back, when you can rest at night with peace instead of regret. That is wealth. Many who have millions cannot sleep without pills, cannot smile without masks, cannot breathe without fear of being found out. They paid for their comfort with their integrity, and though the world applauds them, they are prisoners inside. You may not have their millions, but if you have integrity, you have freedom, and freedom is worth more than gold. The world does not celebrate integrity at first, but in time, it honors it. Think of every great soul who refused to compromise. They were mocked, rejected, often left with little, but history remembers them not for what they lost, but for the unshakable power they carried. They stood as examples that integrity outlives compromise, that freedom outlasts chains. You walk in that same path when you choose truth over quick gain. Integrity also reshapes the kind of wealth that comes to you. Compromise brings dirty money, money that carries the weight of shame, regret, and silence. Integrity brings clean money, money that you can hold without guilt, money that carries peace with it. At first, there may be less of it, but when it begins to flow, it comes without the poison of regret. It is wealth that does not demand your silence, wealth that does not chain you, wealth that multiplies because it is aligned with truth. In this sense, financial struggle after awakening is not a curse, it is a cleansing. It is life asking you, will you sell your freedom for comfort, or will you wait for the wealth that honors your soul? Many give up too soon. They return to compromise because the weight feels unbearable. But those who stay, those who walk through the valley, discover that integrity does not just pay back, it pays back with interest.